welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and I love talking about cards.
Ted.
Gone, daddy, gone. Gone. You have to put this episode out now after.
Yes. You
just
forced this. Because Grant is no longer with us, right? He's not forever, just for this episode. He had to go to bed.
That sounded really grim.
Yeah.
And Grant is, well, he's no longer with us.
He's no longer with us. For this recording session. For people who don't know, we record 4 or 5 shows a night, and it got to be really late. So Grant is not joining us for this ride. Right, Ted?
No, he'll be along for the next one, though.
Right.
So today we're going to be talking about cards and still thanking patrons.
We are still thanking patrons. So excitedly, we have 2 patrons that have joined us at the Ready Teddy level of Patreon support. So they get the chance to call Ted anytime they see him from now until the rest of their lives. Ready Teddy. So
I won't be mad about it.
And he will not be mad about it in the slightest. I can't call him that because I am not a Ready Teddy level supporter, but Vardane is, who was a guest on the show last week, and then so is Justin, who's going to be on the show fairly soon. So Justin and Vardane, thank you for your Ready Teddy level support. And then I will thank all the other patrons also who are so vital in keeping this show going and keeping the lights on for us. And it seems like Ted's trying to get so many people for me to read. We've increased in the number of patrons recently, so I'm going to read all their names.
Yeah, I want the list to be uncomfortably long where you're like, I don't even know if I can do this anymore. And then, of course, you still have to do it.
Right, because you know what? There'll never be a moment in my head that I'll think that I shouldn't read every patron off because they're so vital to the show. But we have Daniel, David, Jake, James, Jason, Joseph, Joshua, Kyle, Lou, Matt, Mike, Dom, Phil, Robert, Russ, and Sean. Those are the other patrons of the show, and we love them just as much, if not more, than Grant. So,
yes, thanks, guys, for your support. We appreciate it.
We absolutely do. So, what are we doing today, Ted?
Today we are gonna be talking about Bofur. Or, you can just call him Bofur. And he comes in 2 flavors. We'll be talking about Spirit Bofur.
Yeah, we're going all the way back to the Red Horn Gate to talk about this guy.
Yes.
Spirit Bofur is a 3-cost Spirit ally with 2 willpower, 1 defense, 1 attack, and 3 hit points. And he's a unique dwarf character. Dwarf ally, I guess. And he has a quest action. You get to spend 1 spirit resource to put Bofur into play from your hand, exhausted and committed to the quest. If you quest successfully this phase, and Bofur is still in play, return him to your hand. Get up, lazy bones. That's his flavor text.
That's his flavor text.
That is.
They do have to stretch a little bit for the flavor text for some of those dwarves, because, the dwarves from the Hobbit story are they're not all really developed characters, right?
Yeah, there's 13 dwarves, and
and the book is like
3 or 4 of them are pretty well and deeply developed,
Right. So he just doesn't have much to his character, but we love him anyway, and we love his card too. I sure love his card.
Yeah, talk to us about what you love about this card.
Yeah, so I remember him coming out in Red Horn Gates, and I immediately put him into any decks that was running at least 1 Spirit Hero. And I will tell you why, David. Spirit... Man,
I don't know why that was so funny. That was just really
I'll tell
funny.
them, too. I don't much reference other card games in this podcast. Sometimes we talk about the sister games by FFG, like Marvel Champions. And some players might be familiar with. I'll mention the competitive beast of a game, Magic the Gathering. And I don't know if you've ever played, David, or had any familiar rules with it, but there's a color in Magic the Gathering that is blue,
Right.
and the blue player in Magic the Gathering tends to save their resources for certain counter effects or sort of effects you wouldn't play, for things you wouldn't play on your own turn, right?
Counterspell.
So,
they were also famous for having the Merfolk and Island Walk. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, so you got some. Like, I'm not a huge player, by the way. I just used to play in my past, like most gamers in existence, have touched the game at some point.
Yep.
So what happens in that playstyle is you tend to have open mana or open resources to play cards not on your turn. And what's interesting is Spirit in Lord of the Rings plays almost in a similar fashion, because in the core we got Test of Will and Hasty Stroke, and those are cards. Those are responses, because they're event cards that you play outside of your turn. So you are usually holding back a resource in a similar play style to afford those cards.
Right.
And what's really great is if you are saving a resource for a Test of Will, right? You're like, I'm gonna save my 1 spirit resource for Test of Will, and you flip over your 2 cards on a 2-player game and they're both enemies. You have that resource kind of open to spend, and Bofur lets you spend it to a great effect of putting him into play and adding 2 more willpower when you probably just needed it at the most critical point.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And this was when this came out in the Red Horn Gate, when this card came out, it says that if you quest successfully, return him to your hand. Mm-hmm. But if you quest unsuccessfully, he gets to stay out on the board. So there is a
trick.
There is a way to cheat him into play by purposely underquesting and then failing by less when he comes out into play, and then you get an ally at the cost of a threat raise. So it's a kind of like doomed before doomed exist, like, because the Red Horn Gate was in the 2nd cycle, so it's it's interesting to think about that. So actually, the other rule that applies here is that questing successfully is only if you have more willpower than threat. So if you have an equal amount of willpower to threat, you can quest what I call neutral, because you're not unsuccessful, but you're not successful. You can quest neutral, and you can also keep him in play. And having a 2 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, 3 hit point ally for 1 resource. I don't know, to quote my co-host tonight, seems okay, So, I mean, so there's ways to get around him, get him out into play. I mean, and he's not bad to play for his full cost. I mean, he's kind of normal costed. You add up all his stats, it adds up to 6. You divide by 2, and that gets his cost, and that's 3. So he's just kind of a normal ally, and he's hardy because he's a dwarf, and he can be targeted by all the things that dwarfs get targeted by, hardy leadership and dying Ironfoot and all that good stuff. So
yeah, right. So you put him into play with leadership Dane, and he has 3. Like, that's a lot, especially for 1 resource if you're using his quest action.
Right, and another thing that ends up happening the life of this game is interesting, right? It's been out for 10 years now, give or take, and this is a relatively old card. I mean, this card came out in 2011 when the Khazad-dûm cycle came out, and so but this card fits amazingly into a fellowship contract because you can spend the 1 resource, like you said, if you're playing a fellowship. This is a cheap ally to bring out in that fellowship, and if you manage to bring it out, everybody gets +1 willpower. I don't know, like, it's like you can almost not quest. If this is going to fulfill the fellowship contract, it's almost like you could, really underquest and still fail. Like, you could because the fellowship contract gives everybody a boost. It gives everybody a +1 willpower, +1 attack, +1 defense. And then if you have dying on the board, like, it's crazy to think what just bringing Bofur into play and coupling him with some of the newer cards that are out there, right? So.
Oh, yeah. So you raise a great point. Just a refresher on what the fellowship contract does. As you mentioned, you need to have 9 unique characters in play, and that flips your contract and then gives everybody a bonus to their willpower, attack, and defense. So if you have 8 characters in play and you use this quest action, he becomes your 9th character, even for that turn, and will flip the contract at least just for the quest phase.
Right.
And you could make a whole bunch of willpower, and then he'll come back if you were successful, but you still sort of got to trigger the contract like 1 turn early,
right?
Kind of. So that's a great point, David.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think that yeah. Well, I just think that and I think it's 90% of it is half mental, but like it's. A lot of people look at the new contracts and the new cards and they want to couple them with the new cards and then, and it takes a little bit of doing to think about old cards that make sense. And this game is perfect for that, because I think that having the same designer for most of the course of the game really shows, because a lot of the old cards fit into the new archetype. It just seems to be the thing that's, I don't know, a lot of fun to do,
Yeah, he's really unique in the sense that most allies, like, he might be the only one. I'm struggling to think here. If you don't play an ally during the planning phase, like, they don't do anything else in your hand, with the exception of maybe having a sneak attack or a reinforcements, right? There's a couple cards that you put allies into play from your hand.
Right. The Ranger of Cardalon can come into play.
Oh, yes. Okay, so the most similar card to this, awesome, Dave, is Ranger of Cardalon, because he does a very similar effect.
Right.
If you have a Dunedain hero, you pay a resource when you engage an enemy, and he can come into play for the phase, and then he bounces back to your hand.
Right.
So
yep.
This is sort of like, so a Ranger of Cardalon is for the combat phase, Bofur is for the quest phase.
Right. But there's no way to get around the Ranger of Cardalon coming back to your hand. There's a way to get around. There's a cost, but there's a way to get around Bofur coming back into your hand.
Oh, yeah, if you quest for, as you said, equal to the threat or under the threat, he'll stay in play.
Right.
Which is kind of awesome then if you're like, if you manage to break even, in quest neutral, like you said, you're like, well, I just played Bofur for 1, so that's okay. Now he's in play.
Yeah, right. And if you're trying to get the 5 dwarf thing, which is what Bofur originally probably was maybe not designed for that. I guess the 5 dwarf thing came out with the Hobbit saga, and he came out before the Hobbit saga. But I mean, this guy helps that 5 dwarf thing that Thorin and Bomber and all those guys are working toward in the
a
Hobbit
few heroes like Thorin and Ori.
Yeah,
say if you have 5 dwarfs in play,
right,
do this effect.
Dory, right? There's one that Thorin gives you the extra resource, one allows you to lower threat, one actually draws you an extra card. So
yeah, it was post errata Nori. This card was really abusive. The original hero Nori said whenever a dwarf enters play under your control, lower your threat by 1.
Right.
So you could play both for every turn to lower your threat.
Right.
But they rotted Nori, so that is no more.
Right. Right.
He does a couple other things too. The fact that he leaves play means he triggers Leadership Imrahil to ready, and he'll trigger Tactics Aomir
to ready.
Tactics Aomir gets the +2 attack boost when a character leaves play.
Right.
And you can, if you're playing him with Imrahil, Natural Synergy, you can also play Valiant Sacrifice to draw 2 cards when he leaves play.
Right. And that's all right.
And that seems okay.
And
alrighty, Prince Imrahil and draw 2 cards.
A lot of the players now aren't going to know this, but the Horn of Gondor, right? When the Horn of Gondor first came out, is when a character leaves play.
Yeah,
you got to
used
get a
to
resource.
Trigger that too.
Yeah, trigger that 100 times and get 100 resources. But
he was free.
Yeah,
you put him on you put a Horn of Gondor on a Spirit Hero, and he was just free.
Right.
You just paid one and got one back. Oh man.
Right. And so the Horn of Gondor has since been errated to say when a character is destroyed, which makes more sense because, thematically and all that stuff. But
yes.
So yeah, I mean, this is a reasonable dwarf ally. He's got reasonable stats. He's not a Brock Iron Fist. Despite his action, there's nothing spectacular there once he gets on the board. It's just 2 willpower. You're going to use him, as willpower. And then Dine is going to help him with that. Or if you need to, you can defend with him because he's got 3 hit points. I think that can't be overlooked. For
the listeners screaming into the podcast, wherever you're listening to this on, computer, headphones, whatever, I'm always going to miss cards, but Tactics Elfhelm also has a similar ability.
Right.
You can pay a resource from a Rohan hero and put him into play, and then he gets discarded, I think, at the end of the phase or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So there's actually so he's not the only one. There's actually a small group of allies, but they can be really useful.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a resource. You're getting a reduction for like an ally event, right? Like you're paying 1 to get 2 willpower, which just 2 off the bat. And if you're playing Dine or doing something with the Fellowship contract or whatever, you're getting even more willpower. So you're paying 1 for 2 willpower that's temporary. And that's, it's no silver circlet, but it's definitely helpful. And if something comes out and you have to do some damage to something, when the character leaves play, all that damage comes off of it. So, you can't overlook that. Gandalf is everybody's favorite pincushion because, he's leaving play. So why not, right?
Yeah, you could commit him before. It's a quest to action, so you could do it before revealing cards. And if you get something like a treachery card, I think like low on provisions comes to mind, where it says like you must assign X damage.
Right.
That's right. You could just assign him two damage.
Right.
And then that's great. And then he comes back to your hand and heals.
Right. There's a whole set of cards that, through the whole game, not just in one cycle, that's like assign X damage based on the number of characters committed to the quest, or whatever. But so it's a common encounter mechanic to assign
from the
damage.
First cycle all the way to the current one.
Yes, absolutely. So, I think that this card is good. Let me say this, that with the release of Tactics Bofur, this guy is overshadowed now, though. I think that Tactics Bofur, with his 2 willpower and 2 attack and no defense, and the fact that he can help you dig and find weapons, like, I think that makes him maybe the better Bofur, because he still is going to get boosted by
which better Bofur is best?
Well, the better Bofur that picks a peck of pickled peppers, right? But I just feel like the Tactics Bofur is the one that's used more broadly. Maybe not, but that dig ability that the Tactics version has is good. If you're building a spirit leadership dwarf deck, or just a deck that has leadership,
just a dwarf deck.
Yeah, just any sort of. I think that you don't have tactics in it, then I don't know. What am I trying to say? Summarize what I'm trying to say here, Ted.
Yes, what Dave you're trying to say is very commonly so dwarfs as an archetype have really great weapon attachments, right? They have the Dwarven Axe and the Darodelf Axe, which are unique to dwarfs. And if you're running tactics, Bofur's a really great way to sort of give you card draw and searching for those cards. So if you're playing a dwarf deck, you're probably running the axes, and then you're going to want to include Tactics Bofur. And that can be really valuable. Plus, he's 2 attack and 2 willpower, and then if someone else is playing Leadership Dane or you are, he's 3 willpower and 3 attack.
Right.
And he can search for weapons if he doesn't do one of those totally awesome things with his stats.
Right.
I've actually run both in a deck because sometimes you will either not have the resources for the tactics one.
Bother. Right.
Bofur.
Right.
I've played Bofur.
Right. Some people pronounce birthday, so maybe this is that
I'm
pronunciation.
one of those people. Happy birthday.
Well, then that's Bofur, right?
Bofur.
Right. But I get us off topic. See, I don't need Grant around to get us off topic here. We can do
that all on our own.
We can do that all on our own. But I guess the summary of what I'm saying is, because you didn't do a very good job summarizing what I was trying to say either. You went off onto your own tangent. It's just, I feel like Tactics Bofur is maybe a better ally version overall.
It's tough because they do different things on what your deck's trying to do. If your deck is if you're playing a spirit deck, mono spirit or spirit and non-tactics, he like this card, he doesn't have to go in dwarf decks. He goes in any deck where you have access to spirit.
Right.
And when he's in your hand, he can make the difference between clearing an active location and not clearing it. You're like, oh man, I'm short 2 willpower. I'm short 1 willpower from clearing the active location, right?
Right.
Bofur will fix that.
Right.
If you have the open resource. And that can make a big impact when you're clearing locations and not clearing locations.
Right. One of the things that I'm doing is, and Ted, I think I've talked to you about this off air, is I'm building a Bond of Friendship Free Peoples deck, right? And so it's funny because there's some cards out there that have unique traits that are found on just one hero. So I picked 3 of those. So can you give me, like, Rohan is a trait, but that's found on tons of heroes, right? Dunedain is a trait found on many, many heroes. So do you know traits that are found on just one hero?
The number one that comes to mind immediately is the Steward trait because it was printed on Core Denethor.
Right. So that's one.
And I believe his leadership version has it too.
Right. His leadership version has the Steward trait, and so does that. There's one that has 2 versions that has 2 different sets of traits, which is common because Aragorn has 4 versions and there's 4 different sets of traits. But think small people.
Think what?
Small people.
Small people. Okay, so you're talking about hobbits. Oh, okay. So the new Tactics version of Bilbo has the burglar trait.
It does.
And that just does nothing. Like there's nothing that interacts with burglar.
Right. And so, but it's the only card that has the burglar trait. And then Smeagol has the golem trait. And so if you start with
that, I would not have got the last one.
Right. And I mean, there may be others. Like Beorn has the Beorning trait. Grimbeorn also has the Beorning trait. But, so you can start with Tactics Bilbo, Leadership Denethor, Spirit Glorfindel, and Gollum in a Bond of Friendship deck and start with 8 traits in play. Okay?
Yeah, because Spirit Glorfindel has 3, right? He's Noble, Noldor Warrior.
Noble, Noldor Warrior. But Denethor is also Noble, so it's an overlap there of Noble. And I'm sure that you can get 9 traits to begin with, but then if you're trying to get your Free Peoples into play, which the Free People is a 5-cost event that says play only if you have 9 different traits with the characters that you control, between the characters you control. And it says you get to ready each character in play, and until the end of the phase, each character you control gains a willpower. So that means you can play the Free Peoples, and if you put Bofur out the first round, not that you can pay for the Free Peoples, but now you have your 9 traits because you don't have any dwarves in those lineups. So that was a long way around saying, you can get Bofur out for 1 resource and it can be helpful, right?
Your dwarf trait for free peoples.
Right. So anyways, it's a fun thing that I found out about Bofur.
No, that's a fun thing about keywords, or not keywords, excuse me, traits. those really weird ones like steward and burglar.
Right, and there's only 1 steward in the game, and that's Denethor, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure that I can get, if I were to start with, lore Aragorn instead of Smeagol, I would have Dunedain, Dunedain
right.
and as a ranger, and that would get me there. But then I would already have, a threat of 140 if I did that. So,
but to steer it back to so we're talking about Bofur.
We're talking about this card right over here.
Conversation started.
See this card? That's the card we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you play plenty of 2-player multiplayer games, but now your primary mode is solo, and I mean you're talking about putting him in a solo deck, right? Because you think he's very playable solo. That's the impression I'm getting.
Yeah, you can definitely sneak him into play, and I think that the first round, if you're playing solo, the first round is the round that you're likely to not quest successfully. The first couple of rounds, those are the most important rounds. And if you're not going to quest successfully and he comes out and stays out for 2 resources or for 1 resource, you don't feel so bad chumping him and making him a pincushion and stuff like that. So, okay, you can do those things.
If you want to do a really elaborate play,
more so than my Free Peoples deck?
Yes.
Okay.
We had talked about Horn of Gondor.
Right.
But you could so there's another Horn of the Mark. Horn of the Mark says attach it to a Rohan hero or Mary. It's restricted as a response when a character leaves play. If that character shares at least 1 trait with the attached hero, exhaust Horn of the Mark to draw a card. Right. If you want to do a lot of work to set up a card draw engine, you could play you could play any dwarf hero, anyone,
right?
And you need spirit. You could be playing only spirit Nori,
right?
All right. You play Nor Am I a Stranger, which gives him the Rohan trait, which allows him to then equip Horn of the Mark, and then he has the traits Rohan and Dwarf, and then when you play Bofur, you will get to draw a card every time Bofur leaves play. It's a 3-card combo, but it's all in Sphere.
I'm sure that's what they had in mind when they developed the card. That's the most recent one is Horn of the Mark, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, because Nor,
you could you could even actually do it with Mary has a spirit version.
Yeah.
You could Nor Am I a Stranger Mary, give him Horn of the Mark. Actually, no, you don't even. Oh, he needs to share a dwarf trait though. Never mind.
Right.
That was the point of a dwarf.
Right.
Yep. Because Bofur's only trait is dwarf. He's not noble or anything like that.
Right.
So sorry, I got off tangent there. But if you use a dwarf hero, you can do that little trick. A lot of work, but some of those effects work independently. The great thing is Bofur, if you do use him in some combo like that with Imrahil or Valiant Sacrifice, he works independently of all those effects, but then he will also trigger all of those things.
He works independently, but he also does all those things, so that's good.
Well, yeah, that's what's good about that's the thing about if you have your deck with a bunch of combos and stuff is if the pieces work by themselves, your deck will be in general much stronger because you're not constantly digging for multiple pieces.
Right.
Like you can draw him, and then when you happen to get Valiant Sacrifice, great, you draw more cards.
Right. Totes my goats.
Yeah, man. Bofur's fun, and I haven't played him for a little bit, but he just recently went into a deck that I'm going to take against the Nightmare scenario. I had 1 open deck slot, and I'm like, you know what? I have access to Spirit. he's totally worth a one of in spirit decks.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to. We talked about how he works in dwarf decks mainly, but he doesn't have to go in a dwarf deck at all. He's a dwarf that's not limited to dwarf decks.
Yeah, he's like the most non-dwarf dwarf.
Well, I think Glowin is the most non-dwarf dwarf.
Oh, sure, okay.
Because he just gets you resources.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
And even his tactics version fits. Oh, we'll have an episode on him too, right? We can dive into him some more.
Who? Bofur?
The tactics version. He also works well not in dwarf decks too, because he just still digs for weapons.
He just digs for weapons, right? He's right. So maybe both of
2
his
willpower
versions.
and 2 hit points or 3 hit points, whatever he is.
Right. I think the Glowin ally version is a dwarfy dwarf, but I don't, because he's a 5, right? If you have 5 dwarves, reduce the cost to play him by 2 or something like that.
Oh, the leadership ally.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
He costs 3, and then when he comes into play, if you have 5 dwarves, you get 2 resources on any hero in play.
Right. Which is amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, for Bofur being people talk about old cards,
right?
Which I guess I get, but I don't.
Well,
he's
bring
aged
it back
very well.
Yeah, let me bring it back to Magic the Gathering and contrast this. You were comparing it at the beginning, but let me contrast it here before we ring this. Is that I think the thing with Magic the Gathering and it being a competitive game is that if you're not playing the one power deck at the time, you aren't going to be winning tournaments. It's competitive and it's fun. I was a casual Magic the Gathering player, and so I would play with my friends and I'd build crappy decks and they would beat me, and then I would go to tournaments and even draft tournaments. People it didn't matter, they would put together all this stuff, but the point is that because it's competitive, cards would cycle in and out and it would always be the new hotness,
yes.
Oh well, this is now that you have to have your sliver deck out, and that comes your planeswalkers and your commander decks, or whatever, but this is not that. And so the old cards see life because they're never cycled out of play, and you can still have a really good deck that uses Spirit Ally Bofur because he's a pretty okay ally. So it's different in that respect. I think that's what
Bofur. He's pretty okay.
He's pretty okay.
David Card Talk.
Right. Right.
Card Talk Dave.
Card Talk Dave says he's pretty okay. So, anyways, that's my spiel.
Yeah, but I thought I just would mention that because some people may have played and kind of maybe that play style appeals to them, and I think Spirit it has kind of some responses and you have kind of more reactions you can trigger. All spheres have that kind of stuff, but a Spirit to me kind of just seemed like, okay, Spirit has counter cards to make a comparison, which I don't like to make the comparison very much. I think this would be the first time I've ever done it, and I don't want to do it very often because it's a very different game.
Well, it's a whole different, it's just competitive versus cooperative. It's just a whole different beast. But you can see some influences, maybe is the best way to put it.
Sure, yeah, that's kind of right. So Ally Bofur.
Ally Bofur. Maybe we should ring this guy.
Let's ring him. Let's give him a ring.
So, for anybody who is new to the show or has forgotten how we do this, we have a highly arbitrary yet scientific system where we have a highly arbitrary yet scientific system where we ring a card on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the best card in the game. That's the one card to rule them all. And 10 is the card that is thrown back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made. So, Ted, I'll give you the choice. Do you want to go first or second here, buddy?
I'll give you the honors.
Okay.
I'm going last.
I was going to say that I'll go second. Okay, go ahead, Ted.
Bofur, man, like I said, I haven't played him recently, even though he's gonna get played some point in the future.
Right.
I played him so much when he came out. He helped through so many quests. I'm gonna give him a 4.
A 4, huh?
I'm gonna give him a 4. and maybe that's actually like too bad. I wonder if I should, but that's my instinct. I'm gonna give him a 4, because he has that quest action. He has lots of hit points. He makes him versatile, and because of his sphere, his ability like fits him very well. Right, like I said, if you're like, oh, I didn't play my test to will, but if we want to, we can make 2 more progress on the quest. Let's do that. If that'll help you get to the next stage or clear a location. So that's why I give it a 4.
And I'm actually, and this makes for good podcasting, but I'm actually going to agree with you. Maybe one of the first times that you and I have agreed exactly on the number. But I'm going to give Bofur a 4 as well. I think that there's a lot of solutions to the willpower problem now that don't include Bofur. So there are. Silver Circlet has come out, and that's a really good attachment. Even earlier on, there was the Favor of the Lady, and that's there all the time, and Dunedain Quest, and like older cards. There were less of them at the beginning, but now again, it suffers from this game suffers from the fact that it's been around for so long, and there's so many cards. That said, that there's a lot of solutions to the willpower problem. Bofur still is a good solution to that willpower problem, and it's nice to be able to cheat him into play if that's the thing that you can do. If you're playing like an encounter scrying deck and you can predict how much you need, precision questing, that Ted and I are so very good at. I think that's he's a reasonable ally to play, and I don't think he's also overcosted and unreasonable to play at 3 spirit resources. No. I think he's good. He's not horrible. He's not overcosted, and I think that's why he's a 4 for me. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna make a comment. Like 3 hit points it's really good when he came out, and it's still really good.
Yeah.
Just a 3, the most comparable stats to him is what the like an Erebor Toymaker has got 2 willpower and only got 2 hit points for 3 cost.
I'm thinking of the Hammersmith, which is lore and 1/1/1/3.
Yeah. There's the Peligrew Shipwright who costs 3, and he's got 3 hit points, but his willpower is contingent upon how many heroes you have with the printed spirit icon.
Right.
Where he's always 2, and you can run him with just 1 spirit hero if you really want to.
Right. Yeah, so I think that he solves a problem, and he's a decent solution to a problem that has a lot of solutions to the problem. But I still think he's good.
Yeah. Well, his post modification is really, really good, right? And there's solutions to that too, like Nenya's post questing modification.
Right.
Treebeard, Protector of Lore, and they let you add willpower after you've committed, and he's sort of another card in that realm.
Yep. And like I said, with the Fellowship contract, and you need your 9th person, and you have 1 spirit resource, all of a sudden, you turn your questing from 3 to 7 or something. That's pretty good.
Well, yeah, he would be he'd be your 9th character, so he could potentially be doing up to an extra 9 on top of his 2.
Right.
If you sent every single character you have questing.
Right, which you're probably not going to unless it's the very last YOLO quest against something. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that I think he's also fun to play, right?
Yes, he is.
I think that's maybe what I'm getting around to too. He's not just like, the veteran axe hand come into play, attack some stuff.
Is he the most Sylvan dwarf character?
Yes, he's the Silvany-est dwarf. Maybe he's the dwarfiest Sylvan. Who knows?
Is he the dwarfiest? Yes, he's the dwarfiest Sylvan, right? Because he enters and leaves play.
Right. I need an alternate card that instead of the dwarf trait, he's got the Sylvan trait.
You got the Sylvan trait?
I think I'm going to do that. I think that's going to be my thing. If you're listening to this, if you've made it 40 minutes through the podcast, somebody out there, make me the Bofur card with a Sylvan trait. Make him dwarf Sylvan. Oh, that would be wild. So he'd be the highest hit point Sylvan out there.
Certainly.
Oh, well, I think that this wraps up the show, don't you?
It does.
Yes. Right. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you again. And join us again as we talk about more cards from the game. Have a great day, everybody.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube. And there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.